Without further ado, we just hit that clock down to zero. Let's get right into this here and go ahead and get right into the weather forecasting content for this evening. It is Monday, April 22nd, 2024. I hope everybody is having a great start to the week out there. Of course, we'll give a couple more minutes for some more people to flow in, but we've already got Misty Weather with Sim in the chat. Thank you to you guys for being right here with me in this live update. It helps me a lot if you hit that like button as soon as you get into the stream. So thank you to everybody who can do that as well, and just hit that little thumbs up button down below where you're watching. Even if you get this in full screen mode on your phone or whatever device you're watching on, you can definitely see that little like button down there. It's on the bottom left in my end on my phone. Hopefully that's where it is on yours as well if you want to hit that like button. And of course you can always subscribe to the channel by hitting the little subscribe button down below the stream, especially if you find value in the content. Now let's play things out, get right into the forecasting. Of course, as always, put comments, questions in the live chat box down below the stream as we go. If you're watching this after the stream, you can always put in a zip code then too and get a local catered forecast right to your door. So just put a zip code in right now live, or you can do it after the stream if you're watching later. But here we go. For everyone who's watching me right now, let's take a look at what's going on. We've got, as we head towards our Tuesday, late Tuesday, heading into our early Wednesday, we've got some showers and storms that are going to hash their way out from parts of Missouri through the Ohio Valley all the way up to parts of New York. That's our first rainfall that we're going to be getting in most parts of the country for pretty much as we head throughout the rest of this week, right? It's been a very dry day today on our Monday here, excluding Florida, where we've had some stronger storms down in the southeastern part of the state. Here we go, continuing to play things out. Again, you can see as we head late Tuesday going into Wednesday, it's the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley region that gets hit with some brief showers. Late Wednesday night going into early Thursday as well, we couldn't rule out some storms that will have even been firing during the previous evening over parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Those could be on the stronger side, and here's what that severe weather risk outlook looks like from the Storm Prediction Center as we make our way towards our Tuesday here. So here's what we've got Tuesday going into Wednesday for our severe weather risk from the Storm Prediction Center. This zone right here, that's a marginal severe weather risk from the Storm Prediction Center, meaning that if you live in these zones, you need to be at least a little bit more weather aware as we head through late Tuesday going into early Wednesday for the potential of marginally severe wind and hail out of any storms that do develop. Now let's go back on over to future radar, because the severe weather that I hinted at in the title of this video, that's what's going to be on the way as we head towards the end of the week. And here we go, looking at Thursday. Yeah, you begin to see development here, maybe over parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, as we've kind of got a warm front lifting north throughout the midday time frame. As that lifts northward towards the north and east, and terrible drawings, but you kind of get the point and the overall flow of our pattern here, with a warm front lifting north, a low pressure system exiting the Rockies, by the way, bringing some rain and wind there. Probably late, very late in the evening, and going into the nighttime hours here along a dry line that's going to form from Nebraska all the way back down to West Texas. We're going to see some storms fire here, and these are going to be the ones we track. And in fact, we'll look at the One Nation Weather Severe Weather Scale to cover all of this here in just momentarily. That's what we've got late Thursday going into early Friday. Notice the showers and storms there. I think Friday could be one of our biggest days for severe weather out of the next several, as we're going to be having a continual push of systems kind of making their way on off towards the east here. And you can see this low pressure system. This is our first one that we're going to be watching as we head late Friday into early Saturday. It's going to be some of these storms down here that I'm especially keeping a very close eye on there, as the pin automatically erases for me. We'll also be watching the warm front, which will be here. We could see some especially elevated convection there with some wind and hail, maybe some isolated tornadoes not out of the question there as well. Storm Prediction Center, here's what we've got for severe risk outlooks as we head towards Wednesday. First of all, we've got a little bit of a risk in Texas and Oklahoma there, somewhere, kind of near the Red River Valley. Then as we head towards Thursday, late day, I know it says Thursday 8 a.m. for the time. That's just when the period begins, around 7, 8 a.m. Thursday to 7, 8 a.m. Friday. This zone is where we're watching. So from parts of southern Nebraska down through Kansas into parts of Oklahoma and Texas, that's where we're going to be watching the severe weather potential, particularly in these yellow highlighted zones and some of the areas just outside of that. Notice how much more expansive the severe weather threat becomes as we go towards Friday. Even though the risk area becomes a little thinner down here, we're still going to be watching the severe weather risk probably near its peak, somewhere in eastern Oklahoma, in parts of northwestern Arkansas as well. And we'll continue to watch kind of the overall severe weather potential. By the way, let me pull up that key so that you can see what the colors mean. There we go. 15%, that just means 15% chance of severe weather within 25 miles of a point within this zone. We'll probably see some significant severe weather, especially in the hail department. within this area. Then by the time we make our way towards, say, late Saturday going into early Sunday, as well, we're going to see a new low pressure system move into this zone. That's why we're going to be watching severe weather yet again at that point. And again, you can see that evolution on our European model. We'll dive in a little bit more into the details and the specifics of severe weather coming up a little bit later in the stream. You can definitely see Kansas, Missouri, back down to Oklahoma, North Texas. It's looking like late Friday. That's when you're going to be getting that severe weather potential. Then notice our new system as we go towards Saturday and Sunday, impacting a lot of the same areas, just like we were talking about yesterday. I want to break down kind of why I'm thinking this in just a minute, but I want to start out by going right on over to the One Nation Weather Severe Weather Scale. Let's explain it again one more time here, and I see a zip code already in the chat at this point in the stream. Of course, I will be getting to your question momentarily, but for now, let's look at what the One Nation Weather Severe Weather Scale is showing, and this could answer any questions some people might have right off the bat here. One Nation Weather Severe Weather Scale goes from 0 to 7. We talked about it in the last stream. Going to kind of reiterate it a lot, just to make sure everybody kind of has a good grasp on what each level means. Level 1 means that you're getting into the low certainty. I highlight that in light green. Low certainty, but a few severe storms appearing possible. When I have you in a 1, I'm normally not anticipating tornadoes, or I'm just uncertain as to where the threat's going to be. That's what a 1 is. Once you get to a 2 of 7, probably going to be some isolated severe weather, with especially wind and hail being the threats. 3, increased risk for a few severe storms. All hazards may occur. That's when you're getting into the yellow color. Level 4 is when you're starting to especially get into the potential for some very significant severe weather. I'm not saying that you can't have the hatched areas from the Storm Prediction Center with a level 3 of 7 on my scale, but once you get to 4 of 7, you're starting to see more scattered, even significant severe storms anticipated. Level 5 of 7 signal for dangerous, very dangerous severe storms in a more widespread fashion. Could be kind of getting on the verge of an outbreak. 6 and 7, that's where you're really getting into the outbreak and long-lived derecho type of event. So let's take a look at what I've got as we head towards Thursday, April 25th here of 2024. I haven't changed this graphic much from when I did the stream on our Sunday, April 21st, but now that it's Monday, April 22nd, we've made some minor changes and adjustments. First of all, I've increased the risk area a little bit up here to parts of South Dakota, Minnesota, western Iowa, including you guys, and a 2 of 7 on the scale, which again is kind of just explained for more isolated severe weather, probably not as much of a tornado threat there as we're going to have in this zone right here, where we're going to have the potential not only for gusty damaging winds, some hail, but also some isolated tornadoes appearing possible late in the evening Thursday. And even though this date says Thursday, April 25th on your screen, it's probably a lot of this going to be happening as we head into the nighttime hours, Thursday night going into our Friday. That's when we're going to probably see a lot of severe weather erupt over Kansas, Oklahoma, and down into northwestern parts of Texas. So I've got a 3 of 7 on the scale there. So again, looking at that, that means an increased risk for severe storms is what I'm anticipating. All hazards may occur. So here we go. That's the 3 of 7 as we go towards Thursday. Moving on to Friday, I've increased the risk and expanded the risk zone a little bit as we head towards Friday, April 26th of 2024 here, as I think especially an overlap of some of the upper level, the mid-level, even the lower level severe ingredients is going to be present here. Some of the machine learning, the AI forecasting, all of that is also doing the same. So that's kind of why I'm pinpointing this, along with the Storm Prediction Center even mentioning in their discussion that eastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas, that's going to be the primary zone. I think that's why I've got this area in the 4 of 7 for severe weather. We're going to have the upper level jet streak turning more negatively tilted as we head towards Friday. We've got a more lower level wind field that's going to be expanding, and we're going to get the overlap of some of those more intense low level winds down here, in addition to some of the upper level ingredients. So we're going to have a lot of mixing of those different severe weather ingredients that you look for. That's why we've got the 4 of 7 here over parts of southeast Oklahoma, western Arkansas, northeastern Texas. Remember, we're talking hatched risks likely is what I'm anticipating whenever I say a 4 of 7 in your zone. This means that you need to be preparing for more than likely some significant severe weather in parts of eastern Oklahoma, northeast Texas, and western Arkansas for Friday and Friday evening, April the 26th, going into early April 27th. Notice we've got a big 2 and 3 out of 7 on the scale surrounding that area. All the way on up to southern Iowa and western parts of Illinois, I've got you in a 3 of 7, especially for a wind and hail-driven threat with some isolated tornadoes. 2 of 7, meaning I'm a little bit more uncertain, but probably some isolated severe weather. That goes from all the way down there in the Edwards Plateau of Texas on up there to parts of Wisconsin. And if you're in the 1 of 7, stay a little bit weather aware. Wouldn't really be too worried right now, though, if you're in that 1 of 7 zone. And then, of course, we've got the new storm system that's going to form by the time we go towards Saturday. And this is something that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the in-depth side of the discussion for severe weather. This zone that I'm hashing out, that's not where I'm expecting a hatched area from the Storm Prediction Center necessarily. I'm just saying that's where I might end up adding a 4 of 7 on the ONW severe scale as we get closer to this event. Right now I've got a 3 of 7 on the scale. Kansas, southwest Missouri, parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and North Texas for Saturday, April 27th, where a boom of thunderstorm development appears likely through at least the afternoon hours across this region. Storm Prediction Center suggesting that this could be an MCS type of development. I see that as well, an MCS being a mesoscale convective system, often known, just like we had a couple of weeks ago down closer to the Gulf Coast, for producing especially wind damage, not necessarily a whole bunch of tornadoes, but certainly a lot of wind damage being the primary hazard out of that, and that's where I'd be looking out for maybe some 70-mile-per-hour gusts. But timing placement of that looks very unknown. So let's get into a little bit more into the nitty-gritty now that we've looked at each day of my severe scale. Again, maximum of a 3 of 7 on the scale on Thursday, maximum of 4 of 7 on Friday, nearing me putting a 4 of 7 for Saturday, but right now we're still at a 3 of 7 over a pretty broad zone. And again, I'll kind of answer your individual questions, tell you what you're in just a second. I see some comments down in the chat. We'll be answering those in about 5 minutes or so. But I want to get back on over now to this screen, and what we're going to talk about a little bit more at this point is the evolution of the atmospheric ingredients, okay? Let's start with the Thursday going into Friday threat, where I've got the highest threat in northwest Texas, parts of Oklahoma, and southwestern Kansas. Here we go. During the morning, heading into the early afternoon, I first want to point out on Thursday, and even going towards the late day Thursday, here's what we've got. Look at all this. Looks like a lot of warm frontal activity pushing on off towards the northeast. That's probably not going to be quite as severe, but maybe some wind and hail potential in isolated fashion there. Notice the development right here moving out of West Texas. This is Friday at 8 a.m., but this goes for the last 6 hours before that. So really from around probably midnight, going beyond that all the way through the through the middle of the night, from midnight there, all the way into the early morning hours here of our Friday, Thursday night, and into early Friday. That's where we're going to be watching probably this zone the most for severe weather. And again, let's look at some of the ingredients that we've got for that. We've actually got the NAM model coming in for this far out. I don't want to focus on one particular model too much, but on your screen in that yellow outline, that's where the Storm Prediction Center's got their outline for severe weather, late Thursday going into Friday. And notice as we go, this is as we go through our Thursday, during the morning, you can clearly see that most of our warm front has not lifted north yet. So it's definitely looking like it's going to take throughout the day for the moisture to actually get far enough north to where we can see severe weather expand into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, even maybe Missouri. The cold front's going to be sitting right here, moving out of the Rockies. And here we go, 11, 12. In the morning going into the early afternoon of our Thursday, now skipping ahead to 7 to 8 p.m. in the late evening. Look at this, the warm front now right here, probably got some elevated convection with some isolated dangerous storms, especially capable of maybe the gusty winds and the hail along it, moving along that warm front. Overall, though, the most dangerous storm development that we're going to be watching, and I shouldn't have called those others dangerous, where it's going to be more dangerous later in the evening, going into even early Friday when you're sleeping, it's going to be in this zone down here. I think especially southwestern Oklahoma and northwest central parts of Texas. Look at all that storm juice. I mean, these are your dew points. This is the furthest the NAM model can go out. But, I mean, dew points over 60 are good and helpful for severe weather. We're going to get plenty of the way into those 60s, I think. And that's a trend that we're not just seeing necessarily on the NAM model either. So, something we're watching is certainly the amount of low-level moisture we've got. Do we have the upper-level energy in place either? And, this is the closest event we're pretty much honing on in now, and we can say with confidence that it's looking like a late Thursday going into Friday. Here's your European model jet streak. Notice what it's showing, looking like about a 70 to 80 plus mid to upper level jet stream sitting there over West Texas, western Oklahoma, western Kansas, late Thursday going into Friday. And that's not all. Look at the low level jet. Yeah, it's going to be cranking on up over a lot of these severe weather risk areas. Look at that. This is 2 a.m. Friday morning, right when the storm should probably develop in West Texas along that dry line, western Oklahoma, western Kansas. We've got that. You see all those reds popping on up. I think it's certainly looking like we're going to have the ingredient overlap for not just big hail and wind, but also at least an isolated tornado threat. And again, we might need a 4 of 7 on the ONW severe scale for this as we get closer. Probably not more than that, but we might need a 4 of 7 in some isolated zones, especially right in here. Excuse me, not right in there, about right in here. I think that might be where we end up seeing, especially an addition in the threat. We'll see what happens as we get closer. Thank you to the 27 of you who are watching. We're about to get into the questions in the chat momentarily, but please hit that like button if you have just now joined the stream and you haven't yet, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Now let's move on to the Friday threat. Need a refresher on that ONW severe scale again. I've got the 4 of 7 sitting there over parts of Oklahoma and Arkansas, especially as we go towards Friday. Let's go ahead and look at the low-level jet energy. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be notice it's going to be overlapping in this area with some mid to upper level winds, and I'll show you that in a second. Notice where it's more prominent, the low-level jet, Missouri and into Illinois. But again, it's in this zone right here. That's why I've highlighted the highest threat here, is because notice the overlap with the upper-level feature, and you can really see it. There we go. Late Friday afternoon, you're going to really notice the overlap there of the mid-level and upper-level jet and the low-level jet in that area. And that's why I think that's going to be where we're going to be most prominently concerned about severe weather potential. All right, and then in terms of moisture, European model showing plenty of moisture. I mean, a big, broad, juicy, warm sector of moisture. Any of these colors in the yellows, that's when you're getting into the plenty of moisture category. Yeah, look at that. I mean, dew points in the mid-60s once again here in the severe risk zone that I'm talking about. Once you get above 65, I mean, you're getting into the really nice, juicy atmosphere at the surface. You can really see where the warm front sets up late Friday. There's your cold front. GFS model and the European model aren't exact on the timing, but if you want to see why I've added already the threat for a 4 of 7, a level 4 of 7 on severe weather on my ONW severe scale for late Friday. Here's why I'm doing so right now. Let's pull that up, upper air moisture. Here's your simulated infrared satellite here going into late Friday. Look at that development. Notice some of that development on late Friday going into Saturday. It's certainly looking like we're going to have a low pressure system sitting right here, and kind of ignore the key at the bottom for now. That's just kind of the cloud temperature. But notice the low pressure system sitting here. You've got your cold front here. Some of the more intense storms certainly look like they're going to be kind of bowing on out down here over eastern Oklahoma, northeast Texas, Arkansas, Missouri. Okay, that's where it's looking like the focal risk is going to be. Up here it's a little more uncertain, but it could be a little bit more discreet up there, so we'll see what happens. This looks intense. Then that kind of leads me into our Saturday risk, and look what that's going to do. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking of already adding a 4 of 7 there, because it looks like we're going to have booming thunderstorms late Saturday afternoon over North Texas, parts of Oklahoma, southern Kansas, tapping into a moisture-rich environment. I mean, here's your surface moisture, dew points. There you go again, 60s for dew points. Lightning flash rate on the European model already indicating that area lighting up late Saturday, progressing into Sunday here. So it's a very active period ahead, and let's start to kind of answer some questions now that we've done a little bit more of the answering, kind of just over the overall pattern. Weather with Sim says, is the Ohio Valley going to see significant severe weather? And my answer to that right now is it's a little far out to be certain, but I think we can kind of answer that question already, and more people go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I'd love to answer them. Going ahead and looking at this lightning flash density again, kind of ignore the key at the bottom of the screen. That's not really as important as the colors that you can see on this map. It looks like system number 1, which is the one bringing the Central Plains and then maybe towards the Mississippi Valley severe threat Thursday night going into Friday. That's going to be already weakening towards the end of Friday. I mean, if we look at the upper level wind piece out of that, the upper level jet, here we go. This is your 500 millibar winds. Notice what happens to that jet streak. I mean, it just dies out. And then we're relying on maybe whatever's can get going as this tries to connect on up there to the polar jet stream over the Great Lakes. It's not the most intense piece of energy that you can see in the mid to upper levels to begin with. It's not going to survive that much beyond the Central Plains, and that's why it looks like as we head towards Saturday, notice we don't even really see any lightning on this lightning flash density map head towards the Ohio Valley. Indiana would be the area that I would be a little bit more concerned about. That's where I've got like a 2 of 7 on my ONW severe scale. But right now, I really don't think Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia is going to be in for, gangbuster severe weather. We might see an isolated severe storm. Tornado threat appears very low right now. Again, things can change, but I don't see that it trending up in that area right now. Let's move on to the next question. Misty, you had a zip code, and then you were asking about the Missouri Valley region. So let's get to your question there. Is the Missouri Valley going to get any significant severe weather on Friday? And yeah, I certainly think so on up there. And here we go, looking at this lightning flash density. I mean, you can certainly see it's looking like it's going to be worse down into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Northeast Texas. That's where I've got the 4 of 7, obviously. But all the way on up there into parts of Missouri, the Missouri Valley region, it's certainly going to be something that we need to watch with kind of with an eagle eye over that zone. So let me type this up on my own end, your zip code, and get to your question there for Bowling Green, Missouri. Yeah, I think the setup's going to be fairly decent for you on Friday, and you were kind of asking about Friday in particular. So let me answer your question by pulling back up my One Nation Weather Severe scale for you. In that zone, as you're kind of in the northeastern corner of the state. Here we go. Here's your One Nation Weather Severe scale for Friday. There we go. Now you can see it full screen in its high definition. You're pretty much on the edge of the 3 and the 2 on my scale out of 7 on late Friday. I think the worst threat, again, is going to be mostly towards southeast Oklahoma, western Arkansas, northeast Texas then. Wouldn't rule out some severe weather shading up your way in the more intense fashion as well. But if you're in the darker green, I'm not anticipating like the most significant severe storms there. So you're kind of on the edge of the potential for just isolated severe storms and a little bit more scattered coverage with a few significant ones in the mix. Tornado threat could be a little bit elevated, but I think most of your threats are going to be on the isolated to scattered side on Friday there in Bowling Green, Missouri, Misty. Let's see. Just a weather guy. SK says, any severe storms in Madison on Friday, Madison, Wisconsin. Let's cover you. That's a great area to cover because you're kind of on that northern fringe of the severe weather risk. And I've got you kind of in the 2 of 7 on my One Nation Weather Severe scale for Friday, April 26th. And, I've got the 3 of 7 trying to creep on up in your area. Not quite as generous with the, outlines of the more significant severe weather as the Storm Prediction Center is. But you could see a little bit of this threat move on up into southern Wisconsin, maybe southern Minnesota. Overall, though, I don't think that's quite as likely. And we can go on over and just kind of look at some of the overall setup for this. Let's transition back on over to the WeatherBell screen. Of course, WeatherBell trial down in the description as always. As I always mention in my videos and streams, they're awesome graphics here. It looks like stuff's going to be kind of dying off as it progresses towards Wisconsin. So Friday, going into Friday night, wouldn't rule out some severe weather up there, but I've got you in the 2 of 7. Kind of an uncertain zone depending on what can move up there. Most of what would happen up there would be warm frontal convection, though, and that's definitely not going to bring like a tornado threat in most cases. I think the tornado threat's really going to begin dying off closer to Iowa and Illinois as of now. But we'll watch it in Madison because it could certainly shift up there a little bit more. MCS, QLCS, yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. Read that somewhere online, and yeah, I mean they're not really that different. I mean, you can get embedded tornadoes along them, mesoscale convective systems and quasi-linear convective systems. They're not very different. But yeah, I will actually. That's a great question, and I'll look a little bit more into that as we head towards the end of the stream. If you're still on here, how close are we? Let's get to the next question though before we dwell on that for too long. Drew Ferguson, what do you think for Lincoln, Nebraska for severe weather on Friday? Do you think it's more of a morning threat or an afternoon threat? Yeah, we'll kind of get into that here. Let's take a look at what you've got in Lincoln, Nebraska for severe weather on Friday. Lincoln, Nebraska, let's look at you, and you can see on your screen right now that you're in the southeastern corner of Nebraska there in the Lincoln area. I'm highlighting you kind of on the edge of a 2 and a 3 of 7 on the ONW severe scale. Looks like it would probably be some of the storms carrying over from the day before for say as well. Let's pull this up like that. There we go, lightning flash density. Looks like some of the storms from the previous night moving along the warm front could be severe, so late Thursday going into Friday wouldn't rule out some earlier rounds of some heavier storms at least, especially bringing gusty winds and maybe some small hail. not a big threat there. And really, I think you're going to be kind of in such a mess that it's going to be hard to get the worst storms. I mean, you can clearly see where I'm expecting the worst of them, where the models are expecting the worst of them. It's in southeast Oklahoma, southwest Arkansas, and northeast Texas on Friday. But yeah, it definitely looks like you'll probably get some severe storms potential, especially, and that would be probably during a lot of the afternoon hours here on Friday. So you could have threats in the morning and afternoon, though. Let's take a look at what Misty says. What do you think about Bowling Green, Missouri? Yeah, I just got you a second ago. Ponderosa says, what is the highest scale we have had this year? I don't think I've brought it above a 4. And you know what? It makes me angry that I haven't. Because, when I started playing with the ONW severe scale, let's pull it back up. I designed it kind of to be a really good severe weather indicator, and I think the graphics look good. If I can get like a thumbs up down in the chat, have people tell me, yeah, in fact, do that in the chat box right now if you're watching me live here. Let me know what you think are the good aspects of the severe scale and what do you think could be improved, pros and cons of it. Because I've been using it for about 2 months now, and I've really started incorporating it in the last couple weeks in my content, and I want to have it even more and more. So just, the better I can make it, the better it is for everyone, right? So just let me know any ways that you think I could improve if you have anything. I haven't brought it up much above a 4. I think I've done maybe 1.5. I can't remember exactly, though. I feel like that was about a month ago if I did. But it's mostly been 4s for the higher end stuff. And I feel like 4 does a good job of talking about the potential you're starting to move up towards an outbreak. And then I really think I should use the 5 some more because that's when you're starting to really get into the outbreak. So I think I should use 5 a little bit more than I do. And I always like to, I don't want to overplay stuff, overhype stuff. Sometimes I might even underdo it, though, with this, considering it's a 0 to 7 scale, though. So that's a great question, Ponderosa, and I appreciate you for answering, or excuse me, for asking that, because they're really good. I've never used a 6 or a 7, though. I'm pretty positive of that. And that's a good thing because I haven't personally, and I agree with the fact that I haven't used a 6 or 7. I don't think we've had a significant severe weather outbreak with a huge tornado outbreak or long-lived derecho event, that kind of caliber storm yet this year, and hopefully we won't see one. Hopefully the 6 and the 7 will not be brought out. But we're heading into the end of April, heading into May, peak severe weather season. If there's any time it's going to happen, it's probably not going to be too far away. But yeah, 4 is kind of where I've been hitting the peak at. Probably should have hit 5 for a few different things, though. And the severe scale kind of goes off my personal opinions here at One Nation Weather, but also the opinions of the Storm Prediction Center, what the models are showing. I kind of blend everything together that you can get from various sources. And then I end up kind of somewhat, the blend just kind of comes out to give you a little bit of a different picture than what you get from the Storm Prediction Center, and tries to make it a very appealing graphic, right, like this. That's the goal, to make it easy to read. Scale going from 0 in the white areas where there's no risk, in my opinion, all the way up to 7. Should you trust these with your life? No. Are they a good reference? I think so. Thank you to the 25 of you on the stream right now. Let's head back on over to the WeatherBell maps here, and we'll kind of get back into a little bit more of the forecasting. In fact, let's talk temperatures. Keep putting those severe weather questions down in the chat as well, but let's go ahead and talk temperatures right after I get a little swig of water here. All right. Here we go. Bum, 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 bum. WeatherBell. There it is, the one I want. Now we're unmuted. I just realized that. Thank you, Caden Ruzick. I appreciate you doing that for me. Yeah. It's because I normally don't use this, the style of map I was just using a second ago, with... Here we go. Now you should be able to hear me. Now you can hear me over here. Now we're back on the graphic that you want. And now you can hear me too. Now you can hear me too. Alright, there we go. Everything's good now. Yeah, I'm back on the graphic I want because it shows the valid date up there in the top left. That's what I want from the National Digital Forecast Database. I normally don't use a mic when I'm on these types of graphics because normally I'm using these graphics when I am just recording a video, and obviously I do the voiceover after I record little things. So that's my bad. I appreciate everybody who called me out on that, though. Thanks for that, Caden Ruzica, and then Severe Storm Fillmore, and yes, Weather Center Nazario. I'm also tuning in as well, and let me know about that. I'm surprised I didn't lose like 15 people there in the course of that minute because of that, but wouldn't have been shocked if the viewership had gone from like 25 down to 10 right then. But anyway, here we go. I mean, notice the freeze in the Great Lakes and Northeast Thursday morning, and then Friday morning it's just a big warm sector developing here over the plains. And look at the daily highs here over the plains. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, plenty of 80s to go around over this region. And let's kind of pause day by day and go day by day here. Here we go, starting on Wednesday. You know, we've got lots of 40s up here over the Northeast and some of the higher terrain areas of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and into parts of Maine. I mean, it's going to be near 40 and even a little bit below in some of the higher elevations. Same goes even right in this zone here of the Appalachians in eastern West Virginia. And moving on into parts of West Virginia, parts of Pennsylvania, and then into southern New York as well in the higher elevations of the Appalachians. More 50s along this stretch of the Appalachians down there in western North Carolina for highs on Wednesday afternoon, we should say here. Plenty of 80s and 90s down here in southwest Texas. Recovering from the cooler temperatures that have been in the southeast, we're going to have plenty of 70s and 80s Wednesday afternoon there. Here we go towards Thursday. Looking pretty warm, and in the severe weather risk zone, we're going to be getting up into the 80s. Moisture is going to be lifting north along a warm front. We should be just good to go for severe weather there. And then Friday, look at the warmth, especially if we can get storms moving out of this area, heading towards parts of Arkansas. I mean, 70s and 80s to go around. It's going to be a little cooler up here, 60s in the Great Lakes. And that's another thing, too. It doesn't look quite as severe in some areas of the northeastern United States with any of these systems just because of it's cooler on the cooler side. Looks like Saturday afternoon, though, if that lingering first low up here over the Great Lakes can produce anything in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, we've got some mid to upper 70s to near 80 to work with. We'll probably see some 80s thrown in just kind of in the mix on some of these sparse areas. But the bigger 80s Saturday are going to be back here towards the southwest. And again, we could see that mesoscale convective system develop and head towards the east from there. Saturday during the late day time frame. Here we go to Sunday, looking like plenty of 80s to go around over the south central United States. So we're warming into a pattern that's very favorable for severe weather, and it looks like that's going to have no problem returning after each individual event, even as we head towards early next week. Let's see what we've got in the chat here. Don't like Wednesday too cold. Jake's Awesome Vince said, sorry to hear that you're not a fan of the temperatures there in your usual area of Wisconsin. Maggie Travel says zip code at 62827. Let me look at that on my own end and then get you pulled on up. But will we have bad weather? My mom is disabled and I need to manage to get her in a shelter if we have a tornado warning. Yes, certainly. Really important, and I'm glad you trust me with that information. Thank you so much for the great question there. And just confirm for me as well here momentarily if I hit your location on the money, but should be right for Crossville there in Illinois. That region is what the zip code you were just dropping on in there for me in the southeastern corner of the state. Now let's take a look back, head on over to the ONW severe scale right now. There it is. Here's what we've got. Thursday, you're not in a severe weather risk Thursday, not worried about you then. Heading into Friday, that's when things take a little bit of a different turn. I don't think Illinois, and especially the southeastern corner of it's going to be our severe weather bullseye for this event. I know it's been in the crosshairs of a lot of the recent events. Down there in southeastern Illinois, I think your mom should be okay, but were you to get anything, It's going to be late Friday going into early Saturday probably. You're probably going to get some storms with especially a hail threat along the warm front, maybe an isolated tornado or some damaging winds late Friday going into early Saturday. But I really think this system's going to be dying out. And it's something I was talking to, I believe it was Misty earlier in the stream. No, I was talking to Weather with Sim about the threat moving into the Ohio Valley. Will severe weather head there? Here's why it's not going to head there, at least with the first system, in my opinion. And I'm sure Weather Center Nazario can back me up on this as well, because he's often looking at these mid to upper level maps. This is your 500 millibar winds heading on up into the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. I mean, the jet streak that supports severe weather there in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma late Thursday going into Friday, that doesn't survive beyond western Missouri and western Arkansas. And notice it's really fallen apart to shreds, honestly, by the time we head towards early Saturday morning. So that's something that we're certainly going to be watching closely up here over this region and tracking very closely as we head late Thursday and into Friday going into Saturday. Really, though, that's why I've got you in a 2 of 7 on the One Nation Weather Severe Scale. If you live in southeastern parts of Illinois, I really don't think the severe weather threat's going to be quite as increased on up there into parts of the southeastern part of the state. But yeah, Weather Center Nazario is correct as well. You would definitely want a direct way to get warnings if you want to move her to shelter. If you're talking about, having a different location for her for an extended day, then I can help you more with that. But in terms of like during an immediate storm, obviously you would probably, if you were worried about this, even though it's just a 2 of 7 on my scale for Southeast Illinois for Friday right now, again, things can change. But it's exactly like Nazario is saying in the chat right there. Once a tornado watch hits, you want that plan in place. And then if you get a tornado warning, that's when you would want to move. I don't know what kind of shelter you're talking about, but if you're talking a really safe basement or like even one of those designated severe weather shelters, those are the kind of things. That's kind of what you get that's kind of what you want to do when you are under the warning. It's not really something I could prepare you for in advance. But in terms of having her in a different location and closer to you on Friday, that might not still be a bad idea, even though it's just a low-end risk if you want to play it safe, certainly. And obviously I don't want to, whatever you think is best for your exact situation for sure. Mega severe. Yeah, I said mega severe. Yeah, that's my title. I'm going to start calling stuff mega severe because that's not going to, I think that's a good way to call this, because we got a mega severe train of storms on the way. I don't think it's like hyperactive or like anything that extreme or something that you might hear other people say. Weather Center Nazario knows exactly who I'm talking about with all the hyper and hyperactive stuff. But anyway, I digress from that. Anyway, I'm going to call them like mega severe storms because, we're going to get really big cloud tops, and I think that's kind of what the definition of like a mega severe storm would be. But thank you to Maggie Travels for that good question. But let's see. Farmlands are underwater. What area? Yes, what area won't be bad? Southeast Illinois shouldn't be the worst, that's for sure, as we head towards late Friday and into Saturday. Well, I'll continue to track it for you. Weather Center Nazario checking in, of course, saying some things. Got Just Hoops TV earlier in the chat as well. Thank you to everybody tuning in. I do think we'll need to examine threats with our second low. This first seems like it'll be a preliminary blow. Yep. First seems like it'll be a preliminary low. Yep, I agree. And that's why I already, when I was showing the severe scale earlier, I don't know if you were on in this part of the stream, but here's my severe scale for Saturday, and tell me kind of critique that how you prefer. Oh wow, thanks to Maggie Travels for that awesome super chat. I really appreciate that right there. Much appreciated in the chat. Much appreciated. Thanks so much for that. Anytime if you need any more help or additional have any additional questions, concerns, let me know at any point. But anyway, kind of discussing this, but yeah, that's very generous. Wow, I can't take my eyes away from the orange. That's the biggest super chat I've ever gotten here on the channel. Getting in on some of that luck Weather Center Nazario was getting in on earlier last week. But anyway, here's what my severe weather scale is looking like for Saturday, April 27th. 2024, and that area I've dashed out there, that's not where I think the highest threat for like significant severe weather is going to be, but if the Storm Prediction Center is going to lay one out, and if I'm going to add a 4 of 7 on my severe scale, that's where it's going to be. And Nazario, feel free to critique this how you feel. I certainly really feel like from southern Kansas through central Oklahoma into north central parts of Texas, that's where this highest threat's going to be Saturday. And I mean, going on over, and we can take a look at the infrared satellite picture and what it's going to be looking like potentially, according to the Euro model down here over the south central United States. Let's get that pulled on up nice and big for it here so you can see exactly what the European model is showing in terms of development. We've seen this trend with a potential MCS, a big cluster of thunderstorms developing. I mean, look at that. If that doesn't scream big storms and severe weather at that, by the time we head towards late Saturday, I don't know what does. So, if you take us through the upper to mid levels of the atmosphere, I appreciate that. Maggie Travels, thanks so much again for that 1999 super chat. I really appreciate that. And you have a blessed rest of your week as well. And feel free to tune back into future live streams and get more information as well there. Ask any more questions here if you need it. Weather Center Nazari, if you take us through the upper to mid levels of the environment into the later weekend and next week, it seems like the second low pressure will be a little bit better defined. And yeah, I mean, we're looking at the infrared satellite and the storms. We kind of looked at the upper level pattern. I don't know if it was for this particular storm earlier, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely see that's a lot more of a, more intense trough. You've got more of kind of the digging of this trough in parts of Texas, Oklahoma. In fact, let's just compare this to the trough before. Let me see where I want to click. I want to click there. So 99 and 135 are the hours we want. I mean, look at the difference in trough 1, trough 2. The secondary one certainly looks like it's going to be a stronger upper level piece, closer to the surface. The lower level winds, the low level jet kicking up about equally in both of those two storm systems that we've got on the way. So right now, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell exactly which one of these storms is going to be the exactly most intense, but in terms of upper level energy, it's going to kind of dig on into this area, and we'll see exactly what happens. But it looks like low level jet's going to be there both times. So Oklahoma and Arkansas, that's kind of the area lighting up both times with severe weather. Oklahoma's really in the crosshairs with most of the severe weather. There we go. There's the severe scale, right? In the crosshairs day by day for severe weather. I mean, Oklahoma never getting out of it. Let's see. Drew Ferguson. Yeah, haven't had negative tilt in a little bit. We had a little bit of one last week, though, Nazario, with that storm system that made its way on up through the Midwest. I think that was fairly negatively tilted. And you were kind of showing that trough on your stream a little bit, too, towards the part of late next week. Come on, guys, let's help them out. Maggie Travels says they do this for free, and they take their time to help us. Let's help them out. Oh, I mean, Super Chat is certainly very optional, but I really appreciate that you did that and put the donation in the chat. I appreciate anyone who does that, and I appreciate you encouraging that as well. But I mean, to anyone who feels pressure to do that, certainly don't feel too concerned either. Like you have to do that. I'm definitely not going to discriminate on your question if you don't do a super chat with it. It's always appreciated though, and I appreciate Maggie Travels for that once again. Let's see. Drew Ferguson, will I be live streaming on Friday? It's very dependent on my schedule. We'll see what happens by then, but I'll certainly let you know if I am. If you're subscribed to the channel, which obviously you are because you're chatting with me in the chat. I'll be doing a community post in the community tab of the channel anytime ahead of when I'll be live, if that ever occurs, on any day. And of course, I'll probably do some videos in advance, maybe as well, if I can. What about Sunday for Southeast Illinois? Good question, because we haven't looked at a severe scale for then, and we haven't really talked about the progression of the storm beyond Saturday, and really I haven't been looking at that quite as much. But great question, Maggie Travels. Let's look at this. Yeah, I mean, if I'm in Southeast Illinois, I think this storm, with its energy, the negatively tilted trough that Nazario was talking about, by the time we head towards late Sunday going into early Monday, I think this zone might be a little more prominent for severe weather than with the first storm. Storm number 1's just kind of the precursor and the appetizer. This might be a little bit more of the big bang of severe weather, so to speak. But yes, the second storm system bringing more coverage to Illinois, kind of saying it exactly as Nazario put that in the chat. And you can definitely see it on the flash rate as well for lightning. Looking like we'll get some convection up there. I think the Euro's underdoing it in here in some of these zones in Missouri, Illinois. In terms of storm energy, it's looking like we're going to have a narrow band of instability try to work up in that direction, especially if you go with the GFS model. That's where we see a lot of the instability pouring further north late Sunday. So looking like the warm front's going to be at least right along this boundary here. So again, you're going to have an isolated severe threat, I think, Friday, and just from early Friday through Friday night there in southern Illinois. Could at least get an isolated, maybe even scattered threat for severe weather. Maggie travels there in southeastern Illinois by the time we head towards Sunday. Looking especially like if you go with the GFS, very rich moisture environment. And in fact, let's zoom on in, kind of in that area. Let's find it, Illinois and Indiana. Where is it? There it is. Looking at that, I mean, we've got dew points in the 60s Sunday, whereas with the first event Friday, I mean, you're trying to creep into the 60s, and there's some 50s also in the mix. So that'll be a little more interesting there. The second system, I think the atmosphere is going to be more prime, and we can just look at the upper level trough, and that'll help us kind of look at this a little better as well. And again, don't take my 100% word on this, we're still pretty far out, but look at that. I mean, having the oranges and the reds, a 60 to 70 mid to upper level jet, making its way on up into that region of parts of Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois. This is late Sunday going into early Monday up there. That's certainly better than, look, this is storm number 1. Look, its jet streak is very weakened by the time it heads in that direction. Second jet streak looking to be stronger and linger even as it heads eastward from Illinois and Indiana. So you definitely have a better bet of severe weather Sunday, maybe even going into Monday of any of the days. Maggie travels. So be a little concerned in weather aware Friday. Need to have a hawkeye on that one for Sunday. Let's see what questions we've got. Kendall Bailey, can Michigan get severe weather out of this storm? Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out, especially, again, out of that second system, because it looks to be the more potent one that we've got on the way. But let's take a look and kind of play things out. Let's just do the GFS model for the sake of it. Well, actually, let's look at my severe scale. First of all, right now, I don't have your area of Michigan like in a concern Thursday. We're not concerned too much on Friday, unless you're really in the southwestern part of the state. The light green is really not anything you need to, write home about. It's just a 1 of 7, meaning I'm a little on the fence about whether you should have a severe weather risk, so we're just kind of leaving you in a 1 of 7. Same goes for Saturday. It looks like the first system, and I'm sure Nazario agrees on this too, by the time it makes its way up to Michigan Saturday, it's going to be weakening, and you're going to get a lot of the precip during the morning hours, probably just some rain, maybe some storms, but not necessarily severe storms there in Michigan Saturday. That moves out. And then the second system, I think the warm sector is probably going to be to its worst just south of you, but if you get any severe weather, I would especially watch Sunday and Monday, if anything, in Michigan for severe weather potential. Let's go back on over now to this screen. I was just running through that without this screen. Sabrina says, oh no, am I going to get severe weather on Monday? Normally comment to me out of Ohio. And yeah, Monday, if you get severe weather, I mean, that would be the day, right, that I'd be watching in Ohio out of this system. Late Monday going into Tuesday. Could be isolated to scattered severe weather if this system continues heading in that direction by that point, in a more intense phase especially. Again, it's a second storm system that certainly looks a little stronger and looks to progress further east with more of the intense severe weather. So while our first event kind of goes, okay, severe, and then kind of dies out, right? So Thursday, Friday, severe, and then dying out by Saturday. This next one looks like it'll go Saturday, kind of Sunday, maybe even Monday here on its track, and it'll be able to produce more severe weather. And this kind of answers your question too, Severe Storm Filmer. Pretty much, I think if you get severe weather, your best bet, you're going to be in that warm sector late Monday. Here's your storm energy from the GFS, looking like you're going to be plenty well into that warm sector, especially with this model. Looking like moisture is going to be very abundant on up there, even into southern Michigan and parts of the state of Michigan Sunday going into Monday. That's why that time frame to watch the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes at its greatest is then. Elevators by Ray Maves. It's been a very quiet tornado season so far in the upper Midwest, but very active in the lower Midwest. Couldn't agree with that statement anymore. It's been very active here. And then if you just go all the way on up here, it's a whole different story. There's been like no tornado watches or severe thunderstorm watches even on up there. And in fact, it's funny you say that, Elevators, because I was looking at a graphic from the Storm Prediction Center just earlier today, or it was yesterday. Either earlier today or yesterday. I don't remember exactly when. But when I was looking at it, I mean, Minnesota and Wisconsin have barely even seen any sort of weather watches and warnings for severe weather so far in 2024. It has been a very quiet start so far. You are exactly right in that department. Um, but yeah, once again, I appreciate that super chat earlier from Maggie Travels. Want to thank you again for that. If you're still on here. Let's go back on over. Just there we go. Lost the top chat. William Clare, hello to you. Sorry I missed that message a second ago when I was answering questions. It rained so hard in Sarasota last night. Mick in Marley says, thanks so much for tuning in. I saw some of your comments chatting with me and Nazario here in the chat. I appreciate Nazario for kind of being the originator of a few of my viewers, I'm sure, coming over from that channel. Appreciate that. But yeah, that's kind of I think we've kind of covered all the bases with the upcoming severe weather threat, but I'm, still got 30 people watching, and I want to answer a few more questions if I can. So let me know if there's any additional questions I can answer here before we kind of close things out right around 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Again, I can carry over a little bit past that as well if we have any additional comments, questions, concerns at that point. So just let me know what other questions we've got, everyone. And getting into kind of some of the peak viewership that we've had in the stream. I just want to go back and let's look at the NAM. Let's kind of change things up a little bit and go back on over to my Radar Omega application here. Also, great site that I use. Looking at this from southern Nebraska on up there to northwest Texas, that's where the severe threat's developing late Thursday going into Friday. And the NAM's not my favorite model to use, but you can certainly get the picture. It's looking like the warm sector is going to line up exactly where the Storm Prediction Center is showing. So from Kearney down on to parts of north central Texas, that's going to be the area we're watching by the time we head towards late Thursday going into Friday for severe weather this week. And again, that's why I've got the 3 of 7 on the ONW severe scale there. LA Tours by Rain Maves is asking about May. Is it going to be active? Well, let's kind of take a look towards the future and look at what some of the Climate Prediction Center graphics are showing. And this is not going to pull up on screen probably the way I would necessarily want it to. But we're going to get it on screens a little bit anyway here. I don't have like a Climate Prediction Center tab. Let's see. Can we do this? Let's try the full screen here. Can we do that? There we go. Man, that looks good, doesn't it? There we go. Fix that. All right, here's your 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Heading towards early May, looking very hot over a lot of the eastern United States. Cooler in the west, and with the bank up of that, that could keep a very active severe weather pattern going at least through the end of April and into early May with more storm systems. Looking down the road, here's May 4th through 17th on the temperature outlook. Probably going to be warmer than average over the northern United States. Cooler than average in some parts of the south. That's it for Nazario this evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll meet again here soon. Yep, have a rest of your wonderful Monday night as well to you there, Nazario. Thanks so much for tuning in. Precipitation looking above average through May as well. So, yeah, severe weather's going to ramp up, even I think in the upper Midwest. May's going to be a transition. June's going to be, I think, when it gets most active in Minnesota and Wisconsin right now. LA Tours by Rain Maves. That's kind of what we're thinking. Got 31 people who have hit the like button, 30 people actively watching. I know there have been more unique viewers on here throughout the stream, so just in case you haven't yet, hit that like button for me. It really helps me out. Thanks, everyone who's done that at this point. I'm free to answer a few more questions here before we kind of drop out of the stream. So are there any other additional questions regarding the upcoming severe weather event in particular? If not, we'll kind of move on and we'll kind of close the stream for tonight. All right, I think we're going to kind of close down the stream. But I appreciate everybody who's been with me this evening. Drew Ferguson on Fridays, the precipitation on Nebraska widespread. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty widespread at times throughout the day. It's kind of what we were discussing a little bit earlier as well. But yeah, that's it for this stream. Hoping to maybe do another one or maybe tentatively a video at some point tomorrow. So we'll hopefully do that at some point. But that's it for this stream. Everybody have a great rest of your Monday evening. and I will see you next time as we head towards maybe Tuesday with a new update video or stream. Any further questions, always drop them in the chat and in the comments.